And my mom said something to me that was funny. I'll never forget it. She goes, "Hey, you're going to prison. They're all racist up there." I'm like, "Mom, I'm white."
Welcome to this episode of Chatting with Stacks. I'm your host, Bill Stacks, and today I got Chris Curtis and Todd Bartos. What's up, Chris?
How you doing?
What up, Todd?
My name is Chris. I'm author of Orange County: The Dark Side. I spent about 26 years in prison.
Thanks for joining me, man. Appreciate you guys.
Hey, how you doing, Bill? Todd Bartos, correctional officer, retired. I did 27 years in high desert prison.
So you guys are both doing bids, but in different ways.
Right.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to know is, when did you guys first cross paths? How long were you doing in prison, Chris?
I was doing 28 to life. We first crossed paths with me coming out of AdSeg, and I went to 3 Block, where Bartos was the floor cop in 3 Block. I went on straight on C status. I was there for about 90 days in that building.
What's C status for the people that don't know?
C status is, if you get in trouble. At that time, the prison system was doing a lot of changes through the system, how they punish people. And if you came out of AdSeg what was happening was they were putting you on C status for 90 days or 6 months to, rehabilitate you in a cell is what it comes down to. I got in a bunch of trouble. I was selling drugs at the prison I came from. People were dropping kites on me. I ended up in AdSeg and then sent to high desert. Like Bartos said in his last interview, they send you to high desert when they're just like done with you, That's
so it's the end of the road. Basically, it's the end of the road.
It's just like you're in your cell for 23 hours a day. You get an hour to come out. You don't come out on the weekends. They take your TV. They take all your your radio, and you're in there with just books. It's kind of like being in AdSeg.
You don't get commissary, nothing in there?
Well, I was lucky that Bartos was there.
Here we go.
Because I got a package
from somebody else.
Well, my mom sent me a package. I was able to get it. He helped me out. He helped me to get it, I got lucky.
You're sitting there. So Bartos, what's your aspect from running across Chris the first time?
And, you could tell like where he'd been from and where he came from and how he handled himself. Just quiet, respectful, didn't ask for anything, didn't hardly talk, just was doing his time, and C status was basically, it's almost like a halfway house. Like you're out of the hole, but you're not quite running around GP. So you're still limited on your program for how much yard you get. You're not like you guys at that time for C status. I believe you guys only had like 1 hour a day, and you guys only went out at the end of it, right, Chris?
I think the last hour.
Last hour of yard.
It was the last hour of afternoon yard.
Right, of afternoon yard. So, and like you said, he was just limited to what they could do. They had their own section and stuff, but it was just a really quiet dude. You talk to him, he was just doing his time, just quiet.
How long do you stay in that place for?
On C status, I was there for like 5 months.
5 months.
And then 5 months.
I thought it was 30 days or 60 days.
It's from 90. It just depends on what you come out of AdSeg with.
Right.
If you get a one, so the thing is, if you get 2 115s within I think a 6 month period, I can't remember. You think I would know all this stuff? I was there for so long.
Right.
But if you get two rule violations, which are 115s within a 6 month period, and they're serious.
At the other prison you were at, though, right?
At any prison, in the state of California, if you get 2 rule,
and then they send you to this one, and they make you do your time.
Well, yeah, I just ended up at that prison. Yeah, you get 2 rule violations within 6 months. They put you on C status. If you go to the hole, you get these 115s. If you're coming out of the hole, you still have to come out and do your time when you get out of the hole.
Further on what Chris was saying, you go there and you come out, and my yard on that A yard, mine was the only building that had the C status inmates. We had one section of it. And, I kept that building quiet, strict. There wasn't really a lot of monkey business. And it was a trip. Some guys would get into it and would absolutely hate that. They hate the structure, they hate the regimen. And then you had guys like Chris, like I said, that was quiet doing his time, actually embraced that. And you'd have certain people, man, when they got off C status, they couldn't wait to get out of my building. And then there was other dudes that were like, man, I like this, I like how you run it, I want to stay. So then they had the option of staying in one of the other sections, and getting out for the C status part of it.
Was there any crazy incidents that happened when you were locked up there?
Not that I can remember. You got to remember, most of the time I was in the cell, but not really.
Do you have a cellmate?
Yeah, I have a cellmate, but I'm just talking about, all the crazy stuff that, you think people see in prison. When you got these guys that get on the show or get on these podcasts, they're like, oh, I've seen this, all this crazy stuff. I was in prison for 26 years. 26 years. And I couldn't come up with half of these stories that these dudes were in there for 5 years.
Right.
You got to remember that most of the time when this stuff happens, it happens when you're around, but most of the time we're in our cells when this stuff happens. Yeah. The COs are the ones responding to all this stuff. They're the ones seeing every little thing that goes down on the yard or on another yard. When something happens on another yard, these COs have to respond to that yard. They put our yard down to go respond to B yard. C yard, when that shit happens, they respond to D yard. They see all the stuff.
Chris, was there ever people like killing their cellies in there or things like that?
Not when I was not on the yard I was at, but at Kern Valley, that was crazy. Kern Valley was crazy. There were dudes befriending people. This is like right around the time when they were making people single cell. If you had a battery on a cellie, you killed your cellie, you stabbed your cellie, or beat them real bad, they were giving you single cell status. So what was happening at Kern Valley is these guys, they didn't want to have a cellie. So what they would do is they would befriend people, and they would get them into the cell, and they would kill them, or beat them down, or stab them, or rape them, or whatever, to get their single cell status. They would go to the SHU for 3 years or whatever, come back out, and they'd be single cell for life. They'd have a single cell for the rest of life. I remember this one time, this is at Old Corcoran in the 90s. My cellie was a shot caller. This is like 97 or 98. I was just a kid, and I was at Old Corcoran level 4. This old man comes up to us and tells my cellie, he goes, hey, there's this guy in my cellie, he's a JCat. For you that aren't familiar, a JCat is somebody that's just unpredictable. They're crazy. You can't trust them. There's different levels of JCats as far as I'm concerned. You got cool JCats and you got JCats that will hurt you.
Yeah.
But he comes up to my cellie and says, hey, this guy in my cell, he's crazy, he's a JCat. So we all three of us went up and talked to the floor officer, to get a cell move. And the CO's like, yeah, sure, after chow, we'll do it. So at count time, I think it was like 4:00, we hear the cops yelling, get down, get down. So we look over there, and of course, it's that cell. Well, that JCat popped both of this dude's eyes out with a spoon. Popped both, and had him, tucked under the desk. That's one of those things where, and this was an older dude. He was a lifer. He's been around a long time. He's just old now, and he's defenseless. Well, on another note, that's what I learned early on in my time, was to never play the lottery when it comes to cellies. If your cellie's paroling or you're getting somewhere, don't ever be single-celled. Make sure you have a cellie. Make sure your cellie, if your cellie's paroling, make sure that your cellie moves out the day before and you move somebody in. You know what I'm saying? You have to look out for yourself in prison. There's little things. You just don't want to ever play the lottery, because you never know who you're going to get off the bus or out of bad set. You just don't know.
When I was in prison, I had a situation where they moved this crazy guy in my cell, and I was like, you ain't putting him in here. I told the story on the Ian Bick show. He ended up leaving. The cops ended up fucking him up.
Yeah.
He was throwing batteries at the cops.
In some instances, you can't refuse the cellie, though, too.
Yeah.
So that's another problem. You can't, if somebody comes to your cell, you can't refuse them. There's politics towards that. You can't, if a guy comes to your cell, you can't refuse. No, I'm not taking this cellie. This is mainline. So you can't do that. You have to go through the proper channels. You got to be, respectful. How's it going? Let me see your paperwork. All this, things involved. You can't just refuse a celly. And that old man, he got, you know, he was blinded after that. It's terrible.
Well, and that's what we're talking about too. And that's where some of these guys got caught up in stuff. Cause like we've said, you go in there and you don't know who this guy is. Like he's going to try to take off on you. And the shitty part about that for these guys is that if you get in that incel self fight, Chris can say all day long, hey, this guy attacked me or this, that. You're both getting written up for it. So just by being, you're a victim of circumstance at that point.
And who's ever stronger, basically, right?
Well, no, I mean, as far as that goes, no, that's the fight. But I mean, even afterwards, now you're getting a write-up. Now you're getting that 115. You're trying to go home. Now that might screw up your thing. Board looks at it. Well, you had a self fight. Well, yeah, I had this fucking weirdo in here that came in and attacked me. I was defending myself, just like you would on the street, just like I would out on the street, you know. But it doesn't. They don't look at it that way in prison, and they call it mutual combat, you know. And if you do fuck that guy up, now you're charged with great bodily injury, GBI, serious bodily injury, or something like that. And now you could be getting a shoe term. You could get all sorts of stuff for. And all you are, and that's where prison can be messed up, is because you become a victim of circumstance. Wrong place, wrong time. You have some guy, Chris could just be walking to the chow hall, for instance, some guy freaking wanting to piece you up off the yard because he owes a drug debt, takes off on Chris. Chris ain't going to just lay down. He's not going to curl up in the fetal position. He's going to fight back. Now he's just as much trouble as this guy that's kicked it off.
Yeah. And he's not even involved, really.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of how it goes.
Dude. Oh, yeah.
So I've been hearing a lot about race at this prison.
Okay.
Let's put some of these rumors to bed, all right?
Cool.
Is it a white prison?
It was. And like I said in that earlier interview, you got to realize the counties that are up here in Northern California, they're predominantly white. We were a reception center at one time. The reception center meaning that once inmates go to county jail and they get sentenced for their prison time, then we would take them into our reception center, and that way they would figure out, depending on points, where they would go. And a lot of them just stayed up here because, you know, CDCR tries to keep you close to your family. So if you're from one of these counties up here, they're going to try to keep you in a prison that's closer to it for visiting. So because they, you know, ideologically, they want to try to keep families close to the inmates. You know, these guys have kids and whatnot. So with that being said, yeah, it was predominant. I mean, don't get me wrong. Prison is still, if you look at, you know, population wise, it's still, blacks are going to be the highest population, and then you're going to have, you know, Hispanics, then you're going to have whites, and then you're going to have your others, which could be everything from Asians to Native Americans to Eastern Indians, all that kind of stuff, right? Whatever doesn't fit into the whatever box you want to put them into for the other thing. But with us being so predominantly such a wide area, for a long time there, it was thought of as a white prison. We had probably more white inmates than a lot of other prisons did. Like Chris, tell us about like Kern and stuff like that. You'd walk a yard and there might be 5 white guys on the whole yard.
There's been times I've been the only white guy in the whole wing, like the whole place.
Right.
Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a lonely feeling, ain't it?
Yeah, it's like I don't feel like I'm accepted or anything. There's nowhere for me to go. I'm like,
right,
deal with it.
And let's face it, man, numbers. If numbers count, and they're going to prey on the weak. You know, if they've got their numbers up, they're going to try to, you know, they'll push you out or they'll use an abuser or whatever. It's just the way it goes. It's just, it sucks, but that's life.
Chris, what was the difference from the other prisons you've been in race-wise when you go to this prison, High Desert?
So every other prison I've been to until I went to High Desert, you know, the staff was predominantly Hispanic, you know, black. There were a few white cops here and there, but it was mostly, you know, Hispanic, you know, especially in the Central Valley. When I went to High Desert, the first week I was there, I didn't see any. All I seen was white staff. It was but this was right at the end after a lot of stuff. You know, there was a lot of things that were happening at the prison. They got a new warden, and it started changing fast. But I remember that I was shocked, you know, and my mom said something to me that was funny. I'll never forget it. She goes, "Hey, you're going to prison. They're all racist up there." I'm like, "Mom, I'm white. They're white. Calm down." You know, she was making a big deal about it, you know, and I'm like, and it's not even about that, you know, because I mean, they want to they want to, everybody wants to sit here and talk about high desert, that it's, white. Of course it's white. There's a lot of white staff there. They live in the area. Not a lot of, other races live in that part of, California. But I'll say this, for me speaking, I've seen a lot of inmates, I don't care what race they are, get along fine there. As long as they're respectful and as long as they carry themselves right, they're going to be fine. But as soon as you start playing that card, however you want to say it, as soon as you start being disrespectful or, trying to run your own program or, being disrespectful to the female staff for one, or just anything like that, you're going to find out how bad it could be there. I never had a problem there. It was actually the best prison I ever went to. I'm saying that not only because, the staff there, but also because of the programs that I, got involved with when I got there. Because when I came out of AdSeg, I just didn't want to be that person anymore. Yeah. I didn't want to use drugs anymore. I didn't want to be involved in any of that drama that comes along with, running around with these inmates, because it's just nonstop. These guys just go around and they just prey on people. They just talk about people. They're already back in prison before they get out. They're already talking about what they're going to do when they get out.
Yeah, what kind of crimes they're going to commit before they leave, right?
Before they get out. It's crazy, and they think it's funny.
Chris and I have talked about this in the past too. What was really frustrating for us as guards is when we have to let them out. We don't have a determination on what goes on, who gets to go and who doesn't. That's not a pick and choice game that we get to do. And you have these guys going out that, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when they're going to get caught and how many victims they're going to leave behind in the wake. We call that the ripple effect of how many people they hurt along the way before they get to it. And then you got a guy who, going back to Chris. So now Chris gets out of COC status and he starts working. And this guy's working the boiler room, the electrical, mechanical room, plant ops, they call it. Okay. Decent pay number. What was your pay for that you got?
I was making $1 an hour there.
And that's good pay.
That's a lot in prison.
That was the best. I was the highest paid person on the yard.
Okay. So to give you an idea, if for that $1 an hour, this guy was working all day long. If shit went down, he's working all night long, because you got these plant op guys coming in. Some of them are cool, but some of them, Chris is kind of used like, dude, you're our token, get in there, you're doing the dirty work. And this guy would come, I'd be working a double, because normally I was on second watch, but sometimes I'd work a double, third watch, working 2 to 10 at night. He's rolling in 8:30 at night when everybody's already getting put on, locking down, we're shutting down for the night. And he's covered from head to toe in grease and filth and all this stuff. And he'd still go, hey Bartos, is it cool if I jump in the shower for a minute? I'm like, yeah, dude, you bust your ass. You worked harder today than I probably worked in the last freaking 3 months, Yeah.
For $1 an hour.
For $1 an hour, But the thing is, he never complained about it. He was grateful for having that job and getting that opportunity, and still wasn't like demanding, hey, because he could have, and don't get wrong, there could have been a guard that could have been like, dude, we're locked up for the night. We've already bar boxed. You ain't going to shower. Come on, man. The guy's fucking filthy. And really, that was pretty rare. I'd like to hope that was rare. For the most part, people could respect that hard work, but because he acted that way, that's why he got treated the way he did. It's all in how you act, man. It's simple. It's simple life. You go to a fast food place, you walk up and have an attitude, and then you wonder why the person at the register has an attitude. You come up friendly and you act respectful and stuff like that. You get treated that way. It's that simple.
How do they treat you in other prisons, Chris? Like when it's mainly Hispanic or mainly Black? How do they treat you in the staff?
Well, it just depends. Again, it's all about respect, dude. It's all how you carry yourself. I hate to say this, you're not going to get as much love as you are from the Mexican COs as you are from the white ones. I'm not going to say all of them, but there was some COs from Old Corcoran that I've seen at other prisons, and they remembered me, and they were really cool, and they were cool to me then. But I want to touch on something that's kind of crazy. So in High Desert, this is when COVID happened. I don't know if Bartos was there still on that yard. But no. When COVID happened, it was crazy. They shut everything down. So you got like 8 engineers that work in the prison at all times, 2 on each yard to run whatever's going on in that yard. And
what do you do? Like fix gates and things like that? Like what is your?
No. I did the HVAC. I fixed the laundry machines. I ran the boiler room. All the electrical on that yard, on the building, the HVAC in the building
that needs to be fixed, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we were stationary engineers is what our title was.
Because again, you got to realize prison's like a city. So he's basically working the water plant, the heating plant, all that kind of stuff that takes care of that whole little city, you know. So it was a huge job.
When COVID happened, they sent all the engineers home except one, you know, would be in the facility that day to go to each yard on call. So they send us home, and I'm thinking, okay, yeah, I'm not going to work for a long time. This is going to be a while. The next day, they open my door, and they say, hey, Curtis, we're going to work. And I'm thinking, you know, all right. So I walk over there. They only call me by myself. So I go over there, and the sergeant's there, and he's like, hey, you got to stay in the boiler room because you're the only one knows how to run it because it shuts down a lot. And the steam cooks the food. The thermal fluid heats the clothes to dry the clothes. All this is in that building. It's connected. It's K&L maintenance. So it runs the kitchen, the freezers, the all the laundry, the big industrial laundry machines, all that's ran by the boiler room. And the boiler room is just like a room with a bunch of equipment in it, and it just constantly it's loud as hell, and it's constantly moving. And so I go over there, and he's all, yeah, you got to stay in here. I'm like, by myself? He's like, hey, you know, you got to be in here. You're the only one knows how to run it.
Right.
By myself, dude. They had me in there by myself.
They brought a bunk bed in there? A bed?
No, but I'd go home at night. But what I'm saying is, at night, everything shuts down because they're not cooking food. They're not doing laundry. But during the daytime, if that thing shuts down, they can't feed the whole prison.
Yeah, so has there been times when it shut down? And what happens then?
Oh, yeah, all the time. All the time. And I was there at this time, I was there for like 4 or 5 years. I knew how to run all that stuff. And so I would sit in there. I mean, they had cameras in there, but I was in there by myself for like 3 months. And it tripped me out because I was thinking to myself, like, I remember another CO would come down and he'd be like, well, it's not my call. It's the sergeant's call. You know, I'd just be like, whatever. He'd be like, they'd come check on me like every hour. You good? You good? Yeah. All right. But that was crazy. And the more I think about that, I mean, a lot of COs that are listening to this right now in other prisons, they're going to be like, no way, this has ever happened. During COVID, it was crazy, man. Like, it was crazy.
By the time COVID came, you were done, right?
I was out. I was in my pre-retirement job. So like when he came from AdSeg and went C overseas status, I kind of got put out on the farm. I was working the gatehouse type thing to the vehicle sally port where the vehicles came in. So I was outside of the walls at that point.